a dramaturge of historical narratives, in two specific performances, one by Yorgos Theofanous entitled Tragoudw, Nisi, Singing My Island, and the second one is Songs of My Neighbors at Paramali, which was done by Mitos Performing Arts Center. So just a small introduction. I would like to set the stage with a few things that I find to be kind of an important basis for this type of discussion. The first thing to acknowledge is the fact that historical narratives is something that we see reproduced a lot. They're reproduced by communities as practice of commemoration and remembrance. Communities that can be individuals, organizations, governments, schools, you name it, people tend to want to remember. The other thing is to acknowledge the two types of historical narratives. The first one is those that we are associated to through memory, so the ones that we can remember. And the other ones are the ones that we cannot remember, that, according to Hobsbawm, they belong to a time before memory, the remote periods. And those come to us through writings by people who lived in that period, or relics of the time, or other types of remnants of the period. The third thing I would like to acknowledge is also kind of the basis for my discussion, is the fact that these historical narratives are inherently layered and synthetic. This is their nature, which this means that they come into play, bringing a lot of their own material into it. The material that comes from their origins, so where do they come from their aesthetics, from their linguistic identity, these are texts, from meta-narratives, what was the ripple effect of these narratives, during their time, and also their association to identity politics. How did they relate to the specific communities that they were associated with? Sometimes they're associated to more than one communities. Cyprus is a great example of that. So, moving on, two case studies. Both from this year. The first one was also presented in 2008. The first one is Yorgos Theofanous' Tragoudw Nisi. This was a music, theater, and dance performance, as they are both. It was presented in Athens in 2008, and in Nicosia in 2008, and again this year in 2014. And that's how I understood that it was there, because I saw the ads for the CD. The CD was being sold along with a newspaper. And by the way, the CD came in two parts. The first part I tried to find and I could not, because it was sold out, which I think is a fascinating fact. So, and this is a little piece from the press release, and this is what the creator, Yorgos Theofanous, says. I will translate in English. After 4 years of study of the work of dozens of poets and many thousands of verses, I have ended up putting music to 40 poems and texts that are now being anthologized from the ancient, Byzantine, medieval, folk, Renaissance, modern, until the contemporary literature of Cyprus. These poems, apart from their top artistic quality, they're also witnesses that do not lie, that through the centuries, the Greek language has been cultivated on the island, unstoppably and creatively. So this is kind of his artistic mark, and this is also the way he worked. A little bit in terms of the outreach and the media. This is the poster for the Cyprus event. I would like to point out that the sponsors, a lot of the sponsors are semi-governmental organizations. A bank, it's also done under the auspices of the President of the Republic. And the biggest names that we see on the poster, apart from the title, is the name of the creator and also the three top flashy Greek singers that performed a large part of this performance. And the other people that took part are under it. The other groups were the Cyprus State Orchestra, Aris Lemessou, which is a choir, and other people. I'd like to show you a very brief clip of the advertising campaign that happened in Greece when it was done there. So this will only take 1 minute. Musical performance of the year with Marinella, Antonis Remos, and guest starring Petros Gaetanos, with the Symphony Orchestra of Cyprus and the Aris Choir and other people. So this is the type of outreach that was done. Okay. And I'm going to skip the other clip since we're a little bit short of time. And this is the visual identity of the performance. It was done in large amphitheaters, both outdoors and indoors. The choir, and also in the middle there was a huge screen. In Cyprus, the Marinella and Remos, they couldn't make it, so they were projected on the screen. And there was also archival material, and there was also the presence of three children singers. Okay, so this is it for the first one. The other one was Songs of My Neighbor at Paramali. This was a cited music theater and dance performance. It was just done on May 4th, which was this Sunday. It was at Paramali village in Limassol, at the deserted former Turkish Cypriot part of the village. It was done by Mitos Performing Arts Center and collaborating artists. This is a project funded by the EU Culture Program. And there's a collaboration with 3 other organizations in Italy and in Poland. Now, and I wanted to also give you a little bit from the curatorial team, of which I'm part of. One of the reasons I'm doing this presentation is because when Marilena proposed this, I'm like, yes, I have something that fits like a glove. So, Ellada Evangelou, which also represents Mitos, says, our interest in the oral testimony, the songs and the stories of the space, the other, the neighbor, were only the departure points so we could understand the people and their emotions, to understand ourselves. Diomidis Kouftouros says, co-curator, so we awaken a village that is empty, that is asleep, but I think we also awaken others. In essence, with this event, we create the collective memory, and I hope it is positive. And part of my own note. So where is the memory of the village? It is within all of us. In the people whom we interviewed, inhabitants of the village, from the past and the present of the village, so Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, in the artists and the curators through their artistic vision and their practices, and you that are watching this event with your own unique gaze. And also, this was kind of the process that was followed. There was research, there were interviews, then the material was given based on thematics to the artists, and they created their own take. So there were 9 distinct artistic events. So this was part of the outreach. I wanted to show you the poster. The background of the poster is the desert. It's a picture of the village. It's deserted now, completely and looted. And the rooster is there to symbolize the awakening on that day, on May 4th. And this is a picture from an article that City Free Press wrote, and Michalis Michailidis, a journalist, wrote this of the project. Excuse me. Beyond the propaganda and the ghosts with which our generation has grown, do we really want to see clearly who truly our neighbors are, the Turkish Cypriots? That is exactly what this program, Songs of My Neighbors, attempts to do. And this is a little bit of its visual identity. The performance was cited, meaning that it actually took place at the village. And what we did was we created 2 groups of spectators. We actually had a showing of about 350 people. Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots were very happy. So we kind of created a promenade performance through the 9 spaces through the village. And this is what people saw. They saw folk stories, they heard music, they saw testimonies, and these types of things. So the key questions, I will be very, very brief in my answering, and then we can talk about it if there's time. Whose narratives are being represented by these 2 performances? And how do those translate in the context of cultural ambassadorship and conflict in the area? So whose narratives? I argue that in Tragoudw Nisi, I'm Singing My Island, the narrative is of the Greek Cypriot community and of Greek speakers. Out of the 40 songs, there are 2 that refer to Turkish Cypriots, and 1 that actually has Turkish language in it. The other 38 are Greek, and they represent the narrative, largely historical narrative of the Greek Cypriot community. More or less, the narrative in Tragoudw Nisi, it basically represents the story of the victims, of the enemies of Greco-Christian Cypriots, as members of the Greek nation. And also narratives of heroes that are mainly men. The women, an example is Antonou of Xendiou, the mother of Yorgos of Xendiou, a hero during the 55-59 struggle. Even her figure that actually appears to transfer a part of the narrative of the time, she is She becomes a heroine through her son, who's the hero. And whose narrative is represented in Paramali. I argue that it's a narrative of Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, because the material and also the production of the artistic events comes from both. It is a narrative of internally displaced individuals and victims of violence on the island indiscriminately, of Greek speakers and Turkish speakers, and ordinary men and women. Finally, cultural ambassadorship. In Tragoudw Nisi, I argue that what we attain, what we get, is a continued history of Greekness on the island, and also the continued history of the Greek language, so something constant, as constant values. Moreover, the victimhood of Cypriots, and when we say Cypriots, we mean Greek Cypriots. And finally, the association with Greek showbiz, and that shine and that star is what can truly promote the types of historical narratives that this show, that this performance, this presentation would like to promote. In Paramali, I argue that the types of messages are based on the negotiation of historical narrative, first of all. Of course, the negotiation of identity, since the narrative is something non-constant and fluid. Moreover, there's a play of languages and of understanding. And finally, I think that the interdisciplinarity and the experimentation that was kind of an integral part of both the process and of the result are also kind of another representative aspect. So this is it, and thank you.
Thank you.